Yvette, I am so excited to get to kind of tackle an issue that just lingers and lingers and that we hear about time and time again. As long as we've been doing this show, I think people have started to really come around and recognize that gender is not the same thing as sex and that gender isn't binary. But still, regardless of how people feel about their body, they still seem to imagine there being only two sexes. And I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about the bimodal distribution of sex.
And I think that, no, to be clear, I am not the best expert. As we discussed before the show, I'm not the best expert to talk about this, but I am someone who can talk about this with some degree of not sucking at it. So let's talk about this. I mean, there's no to start with, when people are like, there's only two genders, XY chromosomes. It's like, well, when you look at someone, and you kind of make that visual assessment of male or female, are you looking at their chromosomes? No, you're not. You're looking at a series of clues that let you think male or female. And then there are, and here's the thing, we kind of have those sets of clues, right? But biologically, there are also people who are, quote, in the middle. And I know that might be not the accurate vocabulary, but we have people who are intersex. And you can't say that we only have male and female when we know 100% for a fact that we have people who don't just have XY chromosomes. We have people who are intersex. We have people whose anatomy is not just defined as male or female, who have specific health concerns that go with being intersex or non-binary or being trans. And there are a lot of things that are not, that don't go with the binary. The other thing is, you can be XY or XX and not be male or or not be the gender that goes with being those chromosomes, because there's a specific gene within those chromosomes that confers your gender. So it's very interesting that people are like, it's just the chromosomes. It's like, it's actually one gene that can flip within those chromosomes that does it. And I think when people look at it and try to peg a thing, it's try to pigeonhole it to just two genders, it's because there's something so foreign about that to people that, it's like, I've only ever felt like I'm this one gender. I've only ever felt like I'm the gender I was assigned at birth. And it's kind of that same kind of fear and foreignness of the thought that the people used to think about with people being gay, right? So there's that this, I don't understand this. This is a foreign concept to me. I don't understand how somebody's mind could work this way, so it can't possibly be real. So I'm going to deny that it's happening. And we've seen this before. We've been here before. So instead of people saying, let me learn about the science, they're just going into this view of the science not being a thing and going into a deep denial about it instead of trying to learn about it. And it's kind of sad.
Yeah, well, and I see all the time people sort of quoting that like sixth grade life sciences level understanding of XX and XY when we realize that genetics are just more complicated than that. So I'm curious if you can explain it all, how these different genes might be operating with each other and how hormones come into it. I know these are complex ideas, but I'm hoping you can lay it out for us a little bit.
I mean, there are like my brother's trans, so I've had so of course I can speak for everyone in the trans community ever because I have a relative. Please don't take, because that's how
science works, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It means that by osmosis, I've learned everything about the trans community, and I am a rep. No, I try to ally as best I can. Is obviously what that comes down to. But I think a lot of it comes down to hormones. There does seem to be there are studies showing there is some amount of difference in, I don't know if brain structure is the right word, but there do seem to be some slight differences in brain structures. And I'm sure because science changes every 3 weeks, there's going to be some study coming out in a few weeks saying Miss SciBabe said that wrong. So please don't pin me to the wall for that one. Yeah, exactly. At me if you want, but I'll yell at you on Twitter for it and make you feel bad about yourself. But I think that when we try to say it's just biology, it's just this, we leave out a lot of different ways that people can be, that we know for a fact people can be not male or not not female or not, on this very rigid gender binary. Like, for example, we have Turner syndrome and mosaic Turner syndrome, where somebody's born with just with just an X chromosome and not an X, and not the two of them. Or we have people who are born with an XXY or an XYY. We have a bunch of different ways these kind of sort. So when people say it's just this, it's really inaccurate. Then we also have pseudo-hermaphroditism, which I know is not the word that we use kind of socially to describe it, but these are medical terms to describe when someone has the genetics of someone who would be assigned male or assigned female at birth, but they have either testes that didn't descend or they have ovaries that didn't. There are a bunch of different ways that people can be that can have a gender presentation that's atypical, and I think that when people try to just put it into a box and say you're just male or just female, they're leaving out all this kind of wonderful variety that happens in the human species, and they're saying that you're not valid if you're in this huge spectrum that's kind of beautiful that we made. And I'm like, and I get it, we're secular here, but I think if we're going to try to speak to our large number of religious brethren in the country, wouldn't they think that if God made people in his image, didn't he make non-binary people in his image too?
Well, that's one of my favorite go-to lines as well. If God made people in God's image and there are both men and women, then God is not either or both, or some fun combination therein. I also love that with this particular conversation, adhering to a 6th grade level understanding is somehow considered to be more advanced and more educated, quote unquote. Right? Like, no one says, well, I learned about algebra 1, so there can't possibly be algebra 2. In no other area do we prioritize our 6th grade education above the complexity that is, what actually is out there. Except
within the Republicans in Congress.
That's fair point.
I have a snowball, so global warming's a scam.
Right.
Sorry, that's
the island's gonna tip over. Yeah, we can go on. But yeah, I feel like one of the ways that we get here is that 6th grade science textbook that has a paragraph at the end that says, and intersex happens sometimes, and it is very much pathologized.
It's a much higher percentage than people realize, because it's I think people think it's just the kid that's born with visibly atypical anatomy, and there are a lot of different types of, or there are a lot of different classifications of intersex that involve having internal anatomy that is not that isn't typical, that has, someone presents externally as being female and they have, like I said, testes that haven't descended, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I read somewhere, I could be mistaken, but it's over 1% of the population that has various types of intersex gender, and I'm not sure whether they're classified medically as disorders or gender assignments. So I don't want to. I apologize if I'm using the wrong terminology for this, but I think the fact that they've been, as you phrased it, pathologized it's done us a disservice for a really long time, because instead of pathologizing these, and as has been done for a really long time, mutilating the genitals of these children when they're born, we should have been learning about the various health issues that come up when someone's born when someone's born intersex, so that they can be able to be helped appropriately as their individual health needs require, as opposed to being mutilated from birth to try to conform into what we see as the quote correct genders.
Yeah, and I do think that people misestimate just how prevalent this is, and how it doesn't necessarily lead to some sort of like major or meaningful pathology or just other medical issues. There are plenty of people who right now are walking around thinking that they are one particular sex when they're not getting genetically tested and are very likely or very possibly another. That's without even getting into a conversation about what our gender is and how we personally experience it. our very sex is not as simple and simplified as we're so eager to make it. And I guess I'm just baffled by the desire to dismiss the beauty of variation for a desire to just oversimplify the world.
That just made me wonder. I wonder how many people have found out they're intersex via like an ancestry DNA test that comes back and it's like, here's your XY chromosome, or here's your that has that has to have been interesting if that's ever happened to someone.
Right. No, I'm excited to see more like widespread genetic testing. I mean, there are definitely some ethical considerations to look at there, but as people are getting better access to and understanding of their own bodies, I'll be excited to see how these ideas maybe kind of shift in the popular culture over, the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it has been up until a very recent time, but I'm sure there are areas in the U.S. still where when a child is born intersex, it's not even a question of do we do, like it's just the question, the parents are still just hey, what part of the anatomy do you want to keep? I feel like that's probably a thing that just still happens without a question, and I'm hoping that with more awareness, that's the thing that's going to change. And we need first we need to stop the attitude from people of only two genders. So
yeah. Well, I'm going to let V grab some calls for us here in just a moment. But I guess I'm curious if you have any insights into maybe the direction of these things. It definitely feels like trans visibility is increasing, and that's brought its own backlash. But I have to feel like we're headed in the right direction. And I guess I'm wondering if that lines up with maybe what you've been seeing as you speak and write publicly.
Well, I mean, as it's already been said by people smarter than me, the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. And I worry right now because we are at a time when we don't know what's going to happen after, even if, and it looks like Joe Biden's going to win this election, even if he wins, we have this very vocal, very horrible section of society that is not going to go away with Trump going away. And I don't know if there's going to be pushback from the person who's definitely going to be put into the Supreme Court. It seems like there's a legitimate push right now to push back on gay marriage, and they might have the votes in the court. Like, there are a lot of things right now in the country that are legitimately terrifying about the chance for gay rights, for LGBT rights, for recognition of LGBTQ validity being pushed back. And that's worrisome. And that's why, even though things have been going forward, things have been getting better, and things generally will over time get better, I think in the short term, while there are hate groups that are growing in numbers and are and still have at least for a short time the federal government kind of on their team, so to speak, there's a vigilance that needs to be kept high for in order to kind of keep our LGBTQ friends and our trans friends protected, because it's not coming from above.
Yeah, I love the way you made a caveat for that phrase. The arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice, because I think a key component there is that we actually need to be in a position where we are actively working towards that justice, and keeping in mind that it's not just going to happen one day. Like, there's no such thing as, a happy ending is reassured and all that. So we have to be on the lookout for places where we can actively advocate for that justice.
Yeah, like it doesn't bend on its own. Like it's
Sure.
Nazis left unopposed are gonna knots. I'm just saying. So.
Nazis gonna nuts. Well, you've definitely heard V and I say it. I think I'm hearing it from you too, Yvette. Get out and vote, please.
Yes.
Do
oh yeah.
something.
Vote.
my live stream every week, I implore people, don't just vote, but I ask you to find a friend who has not registered to vote yet, who is up for voting for Biden, to go register to vote as well. So register to check, and I always I check my voter registration once a week just to make sure that I'm still on there. And when I send in my mail-in ballot, it's gonna go through. So I tell people, please check your voter registration, get a friend to register to vote, and make sure you're if your state has it, sign up for a vote tracker to make sure that your vote gets counted. It is the only way we're going to get out of this. Wait, I was about to swear, but I don't think I asked if I could swear. Can I swear?
Oh yeah, you goddamn right.
Oh yeah, it is the only way we're gonna get out of this fucking mess. There's nothing else we can do, and I get it. I get it. I'm sure that I'm sure that we're not the types of people who Joe Biden was our first choice for president. Like, he was, out of the people who I knew before, whose names I recognize, he was probably my bottom 3. But you know what? I am so fucking stoked to vote for Joe Biden. I want nobody more than Joe Biden to be in that office right now. Give me 4 years of Joe Biden. I'm excited about this. You know why? Because he's not Donald fucking Trump. Because we won't all die. Because there's a vaccine coming out, and maybe it won't cost $1 zillion if somebody who's not a fucking psychopath is in the White House. I'm just saying, I'm terrified. We're in a zombie-infested bus station, and the only bus getting us out of here is the Biden-Harris bus. Oh, there's not Wi-Fi and the gold-plated toilet in the Biden-Harris bus? I don't care. It's getting us away from the zombies. We'll get a nicer bus at the next bus stop, okay? I want out of this bus. Okay, sorry, I just had to.
No, I'm all for getting out of the bus that we're in and making some meaningful changes. And I hope that people are motivated to bend that arm.
If they're I do also want to jump in real quick and say that, unfortunately, the ACA cannot endorse officially any political candidate on air. So this is not representative of the ACA, but also get out and vote, and you know who we mean. Yeah, so
I mean, I know you can't endorse, but we all know who you're not on the team of, because obviously. But yeah, go out and get Biden into office. Don't you remember how much we loved the Obama Biden memes? It's gonna be Biden Harris memes, and they're gonna be amazing.
All Biden memes. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Biden Harris memes are going to be so great. Just, I'm excited about that. Like, after 4 years of I don't know about you guys, but because I have an actual diagnosed case of OCD, not just I'm a little compulsive about things, so I say I have OCD. I wake up at 3 a.m. and check damage report, what's happened now, every night. I'm looking forward to
doom scrolling, huh?
Yes. I miss being able to. Do you guys miss being able to sleep and not being terrified that we've accidentally kofefed ourselves into war with North Korea? I want November 3rd. I want even though I know we're not going to have the official election results yet, I want to sleep well that night. That's all I want.
I don't know. I've got an anxiety disorder. I haven't slept well since I was 10.
It was funny. I'd never had TMJ before. The first year Trump was in office was when I got TMJ, and it has not gone away since.
Oh my God.
So, I literally started grinding my teeth when that man took over.
Correlation, causation, column A, column B,